Alright, so today we're doing the business presentation, which is very important. I realized that you need a lot of practical skills, because I think you learned a lot from the email, letter, what else? Text writings from last class. So I was actually thinking maybe you guys need a lot more practical skills. So I've decided to do the business presentation skills today. And also, I'll let you know how to actually make your LinkedIn page so that you can actually get prepared in terms of like your career planning, all right? So that's gonna be one session. And also, does any of you have a English CV? English CV? Right, English resume? Veronia has one? Hassan, you have one? Oh, you had one, all right. Right, so I think you need English CV by the time you graduate, right? You will have to submit your English resume. So I'm going to devote one session to writing English resume or English CV. Okay? So today, this is very important because this is going to be your final term exam. All right, so let's just start with the sorry. Okay, so next week we're doing the midterm exam, which is based on essay writing, right? But then our final term exam will be on business presentation, right? Okay, so what you have to do is to make a presentation on the institution or the company that you're hoping to work for after graduation, all right? And because we're going to go over how to write the CV, and also we'll make a LinkedIn page, every one of you guys, during the classes after the midterm exam. You will actually have the English CV ready, and also your LinkedIn page ready, right? So you have to actually capture those pages into the business presentation as well, right? So you basically have to select the institution or company that you hope to work for after you graduate, and you do some research on this. And I'm going to let you know how to create the business presentation in this session. So learn from me how to make a very nice one, and also you will learn how to make a presentation, like an oral presentation, right? So what you have to do is to create the PPT, including your CV and the LinkedIn page inserted, and also you have to video camera your presentation, all right? And that presentation should be like from 5 to 10 minutes. And there's a caveat. I'm gonna ask you to include comments on the PPT or the presentation within either the PPT, the page itself, or you can actually have an audience as your peers as an audience, and they can actually make a comment on your presentation within the video. It's up to you, right? And the difference will be actually the more your names are mentioned, you get extra credit. So the point is, the more you help out, the more credit, the more scores you get. All right. So the more people ask for your comments or your help, the more scores you get. All right. So try to be very active. I mean, like proactive in reaching out and stuff like that. Does that make sense? So that's gonna be your final term exam. Does that make sense to you? All right. So I'm gonna ask you to submit your presentation by 12th week and your video presentation by the 13th week. Yeah, so we're not going to have an essay sort of type final term exam, but your final term exam will be the video and then the PPT. Does that all make sense to you? All right? Okay. Okay, so today is very, very important because I'm going to let you know how to create not only the PPT, but also how to do the presentation very effectively. Okay, let's go to the first page. All right, what is global business presentation?
A structured form of communication used in professional or organizational settings. Common formats include pitches to investors or clients, internal strategy meetings or updates, product demos or lunch briefings, reports on performance or proposals, typically supported by visual aids, slides, charts, graphs, goes beyond information sharing, aims to influence, clarify, or prompt decisions, aligns the message with the audience's needs and business's objective.
Right, I created this one like it's a brand new PPT because I just felt that the one that I uploaded was not enough. So you can't find it in the computer. So you just have a look at this PPT. Business presentation, I think, is one of the most important skills that you have to have once you start working. Because you will have, I don't know, like hundreds and thousands of business meetings. And a lot of times, if you're a junior, then you're going to put in the position to create the PPT. And also, as you sort of scale up, as you start being promoted, you will actually get to present a lot, right? And a lot of the meetings, we live in the digital age, so I'm sure that you're going to do a lot of Zoom meetings, which occur interculturally. It happens in different time zones, and you really have to learn how to create the nice PPT that suits the audience, and also how to present your PPT business presentation very effectively. And you really have to think about your audience, who is listening to your presentation, and also the format. And then I'm going to actually let you know that you really have to do the storytelling. A lot of people think that storytelling, narrative, it's not really related with the business sort of type. But I really have to tell that businesses occur amongst human beings. And human beings are most prone to listen and remember the stories of the others. So that's why storytelling format is very important, and I'm going to let you know how to do that, okay? Okay, why does it matter in global settings in particular?
Global professionals often work across cultures, time zones, and language. Business presentations are key for cross-border collaborations, virtual meeting with international teams, pursuing diverse stakeholders, and requires cultural sensitivity, adjust tone, formality, and language, avoid idioms or culturally specific references, respect communication norms, example directs vs indirects, visual and structures help bridge communication gaps, global presentation skill enhance credibility and professional impact.
Yeah, since our course is entitled Advanced Global Communications, we actually have to focus on the presentations or the business communication occurring in sort of multinational contexts. And especially if you were to communicate with people from different cultures and different nationalities, presentation, like the making or the creating nice slides or well-structured slides is very, very important because you have language barrier. You have verbal language barrier, right? So if you were to create a very nicely structured and very well communicated presentation PPT, or you can use Canva or other tools if you want, but as long as you have a very nicely structured PPT, then it makes the communication or the communication occurring during the Zoom meetings or whatever meetings that you have a lot easier, right? So that's why you need to really think about how you can structure your PPT as part of the storytelling strategy, and also use lots of visuals like data and other tools to make it more communicative. So you can either use your verbal skills or the presentation in the PPT or other materials as a communication tool. And so it's so important. You will actually learn once you start working. This is, I can't emphasize it enough. Okay, so the first step is to know your audience, right? This is very important. So before you actually create anything, or before you prepare any of the materials or any of the preparation for verbal presentation, you really have to think hard about your audience. This is so much important. Mahima, could you, yeah, read?
Know your audience. Who are you speaking to? What do they care about? How do you tailor tone, visuals, and content across cultures?
Right. So I mean, these are the simple questions, but you can actually think about other stuff as well. Like I told you that before I had the meeting with the people from the UAE, I did so much research, not only about the personal background, but on the history as well, because I didn't really know much about Middle Eastern history. I mean, I had a lot of Western friends, and I learned quite a lot of the Western culture and history, but I didn't really know much about the culture, sort of the historical background of the region. So that's why I basically went over like the basic reading list for like Middle Eastern culture and like history, and I was trying to weave in the personal background with the cultural or historical sort of knowledge that I was able to learn from the books. So this is so important. So having not only the personal picture of the person that you present to, but also the holistic picture of the cultural or historical background where those people coming from, this is very important. So I actually gave you a worksheet. I think it's titled, okay, student worksheet, how to do a business presentation. And part 1 is know your audience, okay? So your assignment, I told you, is to create a nice presentation on the institution or company that you hope to work for after graduation. That's the topic, right? So here, you write down who your potential audience be. I mean, it might be like me and the other students, but you can actually create, like it could be your friends, or it could be the colleagues. So think about whom your potential audience will be and what you think they expect or value from your presentation. So write them down. Yeah. Oh, make sure that you write down your name on the top. Does everybody have the sheets? So this is an exercise for you to help thinking about your potential audience. But you can think about like other stuff. I mean, it's according to the purpose of the presentation. But I mean, the presentation for the assignment is pretty simple because the audience is me and then the other students. But if you were to create the real business presentation, I mean, the audience will be very diverse. But then at this time, to think of it as the audience for your business presentation for the assignment. It's not complicated.
Your audience going to be general expertise or like the head of office or something?
No, but, yeah, I mean, most of the times, you will actually speak to the person or in the business meetings, but this time it's the assignment presentation. So it's going to be me and other students. Yeah. But this is basically the exercise that you have to repeat whenever you prepare for business presentation. You really have to think hard about the audience. This is very important. Okay, let's go to the next page. A lot of them are actually doing the part 2, part 3. Okay, set clear objectives. Whose turn is it?
What is your main goal? Examples: inform, persuade, report, pitch. Try writing a one-sentence goal.
Right. So a lot of times, or actually, people think about the purpose of the presentation before they think about the audience. Okay, the order is very important. So you really have to think hard about your audience first. You know, their backgrounds, you know, like what they want out of the meeting, you know, what they want out of your presentation, and then you set the goal for your presentations. So you think about the person first, and then the goal of the presentation, or the aim of the presentation, the aim that you're doing this presentation, right? So go to part 2, set your objectives. What's the goal of your presentation? It could be giving an information. A lot of times, if you work in the business, it's actually to persuade. I actually did a pitch to raise funds for my company, a lot of money, you know, so I really have to persuade in a very effective way, you know. Or report, you know, if you have a news, or if you have information that you want to report about, you can, you know, have a very descriptive presentation, but a lot of times it's either informing or persuading. And pitch is basically like, if you were to deal with the investor relations, pitch is basically is a more sort of intensive form of persuasion. So yeah, write down the goal of your presentation for the assignment, which is pretty simple this time. Okay, the first step, think about the person that you're speaking to. Second, according to the person, or the background of the person, you set the objective of your presentation. The aim, what you want to get out of the presentation. You know, one clear sentence. Okay, next stage. This is important. And afterwards, you start structuring your contents, okay? Person, objective, and then based on those two components, you actually make a structure of your presentation, okay? The first part is introduction. This is very important. Whose turn is it?
Structure your content: introduction, hook, and preview. Hook your audience. Start with a question, story, plot, or surprising fact to grab attention. Establish relevance. Briefly explain why the topic matters to your audience. Preview the structure. Introduce your 3 main points to set expectation.
Right. I nicely summarized what you need to include in the introduction. This is very important, right? So introduction, you really have to grab the attention of your audience. And in order to grab the attention, it's very important that you actually throw a provocative question, you know, like a weird question for people to wonder about. Or you can do a nice storytelling, you know, or you can actually throw them with a surprising fact. So they will find, okay, oh, I didn't know about this. They feel this way. And in doing so, you basically try to grab the attention, you know, because people are very tired, you know, like they will have like, I don't know, like for senior executives, they actually have to do like hundreds of meetings, like over a month or over a year, you know, and then, you know, they'll actually forget most of the stuff that you actually get to present. So the first step is to grab the attention. And there are various strategies that I wrote down here, like question, story, quote, surprising fact, and I can give you some tip. You can actually ask ChatGPT for this. They have amazing ideas. So if you can't come up with one, just ask ChatGPT. All right. So like say you want to work for UNESCO, and you ask the ChatGPT, what would be the attention-grabbing fact or a hook to start the presentation on the UNESCO, and then they'll actually give you a very nice idea. And also, unless your presentation is relevant to the person that's hearing the presentation, they won't give you the attention. So that's why you really have to think hard about the audience, and just make them interested in your presentation, right? And this is important. So I always told my students that doing the presentation is similar to essay writing. The basic principles are simple. What is 모르시게? It's a sand cloth. You know this, right? So introduction is basically you give a background about what you're going to speak very briefly, like 3 points, and body. You basically specify, give more details and examples on the 3 points. So body. And conclusion, again, you have to recap what's been discussed. So, this is basically the basic format of the essay writing, and it's almost the same in the PPT. So, after you grab the attention by throwing a random, like a surprising fact or like a nice question or like a nice storytelling, and the audience is like, okay, this sounds interesting. And what you really need to tell is what you're going to present, right? And summarize them in a very neat, concise language in 2 or 3 points. Okay, so that's the elements of the introduction. Okay, so let's do the introduction together. We only have we only have 1 sentence, but I think you can actually write it down like in some empty spaces. So let's do you can actually think about your hook. The point that you can actually make the audience to grab the attention of your audience. Think about the hook for your introduction. Yep. Oh, if you want to do a business, that's brilliant. Yeah. Hassan has a great idea. So if you actually want to start a business after you graduate, you can actually make a presentation on your business. Yeah, like very entrepreneur. Great. Oh, I love it. Yeah. So so write down the hook. Write down the attention-grabbing point for your presentation. I should have given you more space, but yeah. And for this, you can actually use ChatGPT. They have great ideas. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next point, which is on the body. 3 main points. I mean, it could be 2, 3, or 4, but just for general ideas, I mean, I think it's good to start with 3 points. Whose turn is it? Hassan?
Structure your content. 2 body, 3 main points. Point 1. Clearly state the first key idea with supporting details or examples. Point 2. Transition smoothly and explain the second main idea. Point 3. Deliver the third point showing logical progression and reinforcing your argument.
Right. I mean, so presentation is similar to essay writing. So that's why, like, if you were to, write your essay very well, then actually it's quite easy to write. I mean, create the PPT because it has to follow the logical sequence. So think about the 3 main points, but then those have to be related logically. Because I mean, if it's not logically related, then actually the audience will be found like dumbfounded, like it's a bit weird, so they'll actually lose interest in your presentation. So like think why those 3 points are related and how you can actually sequence them as to have a logical sort of reasonable flow. All right, so write down in the worksheet, write down 3 main points. It could be like 3, 4, but just to start with 2 or 3 points. Why you chose this institution, why you want to work for this, and what are the key characteristics. I shouldn't I should not give you the ideas, but these are the basic ideas that you can come up with. Why you chose this organization, why you want to work for this, what are the key characteristics, and what are the key characteristics of the people that this organization is seeking for, like it could be like various things. So think about the 3 main points that you want to include in your presentation. Yeah. So these will be your main body, but it doesn't mean that you have 3 slides. You actually have to support the three main points with great details. So you actually include like other stuff, like the statistics, like visuals, But the points, basically the argument or the points of your presentation have to be like clearly defined before you actually frame your presentation. Okay, let's move on. Conclusion. Who's next? Okay.
Conclusion, structure your content, three conclusion, summary, and action. Recap, briefly summarize the three main points to the reinforce key takeaways. Call to action, end with a strong message. What should the audience think, feel, or do? Last one is memorable close. Use a final quote, story, or vision to leave a lasting impression.
Right, so as I told you, you finish with what you started with, So you started with the three main points that you're going to present, right? So at the end, to basically summarize what you have argued or what you have presented in a very clear, concise language. And after that, this point is very important. So for any business meeting, when you finish, you have to have an action item. If you don't have any action item to finish with, why do you have the meeting? You're not just meeting up for friendship. It's a business meeting, right? So if you were to have a meeting for for investor relations, basically you have to have the next step forward, right? So that's why when you finish the business presentation, you always have to have a very specific action item for all the participants to carry on, right? To carry out. This is very important. And I think I emphasized this in our email writing as well. At the end, you leave a sentence or two for the recipient to do something, by reading this email, that's the whole purpose of business writing, So, and that's the same with the business presentation. You basically have to summarize, or you have to write down in a very clear, concise, and very tangible way what your audience have to do. Okay, so this is very important. And then you can sort of finish with a quote or a story, to have a lasting impression. But this is not as important as call to action. This is very important. Okay. All right, and then why do we have to use the storytelling method for presentation? Okay, whose turn is it? Oh, okay. Do you have a microphone with you? Okay.
Power of storytelling. Stories have the power to bring your presentation to life. They make abstract ideas concrete, data more relatable, and complex concepts easier to understand. Audiences are more likely to remember a story than a list of statistics or bullet points. That's why incorporating storytelling into your presentation is one of the most effective ways to capture attention and leave a lasting impression.
Right.
You can use various types of stories depending on your purpose and audience. Share a personal anecdote that illustrates your journey or perspective.
Right.
Present a case study about a real client that shows how your product or service made a difference. Or tell a brief story from the market that reflects a trend, challenge, or opportunity. The key is to make the story relevant to your message and audience.
So when I say storytelling, it's not you have to quote a literature or something, It's not that, Basically, story is what you make out of a person, If you have an interesting interaction with other person related with the main points of your presentation, that's what storytelling is about. So to make a point, I told you about my story with the people that I met from the UAE. I told you about the American president of the Zayed University, who's a symbolic figure. He's the face leader. From the face. From the outside, he looks like a leader who has the power, decision-making power. But actually, in the Middle Eastern culture, he's just a symbolic figure. So the real decision-making power lies within the hands of the second-hand man, or the UAE people. So I told you about how I started a conversation with the president, Although both of his wife and they're both scientists, but then the son is a violinist. All this kind of interesting story. I'm actually telling you about these stories to make a point. Because people actually remember a lot better if they were to hear a story. And a story basically means anything, event, or any kind of accident, or anything that had happened between people. Okay? So if you can come up with any story out of your personal experiences, or if there's a story that happened to a customer or related with a product or the service that you're offering, that's enough. But try to incorporate a story, an accident or event that occurred between the people. This is the caveat. Okay? Okay, so another important point on storytelling. Okay?
Even though stories are powerful, they should not take over your entire presentation. Keep them concise, clear, and purposeful. A well-told 30-second story can spark interest, create emotional engagement, and reinforce your key points. Aim for stories that connect to your audience's experience and drive home your core message without underlining your structure.
Right. So stories are most powerful when you start your presentation, and it doesn't have to be long. Maybe like 30 seconds is enough. If it's too long, then because you're actually doing the business presentation, it's not as effective. But if you were to just insert a very short story within the introduction, that's the most powerful. Like, did you actually watch any of the TED Talks? Yeah, they always start with the stories. Yeah, they always start the speech with the stories. Because they know that it's very powerful. So starting your presentation with a very simple or very concise story, like less than a minute, is very good. And also, if you can end your presentation with a very short story, is as good, but perhaps not as powerful as within the parameter of the introduction. So this is important. Story is powerful, but don't overuse it. You can just use it for introduction. So let's think about the story or any kind of example that you can insert in your presentation. Okay, write them down in the sheet.
Professor, that documentation should be
Okay, so in addition to the story that you can put in, please write down the summary and the call to action. This call to action point is very important in the conclusion. I just omitted it. So write down the action item that you can end with your presentation, and also an example of story. Any kind of story. It can be related with your personal experiences or any of the other famous people. Okay, next, visuals and data planning. Who's next, is it?
Visual design essentials. Design tips: less text, more visuals. Constant fonts, colors, use high quality images. Avoid slide clutter.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't include any text. It just means that, like actually better to put more visuals than texts, right, in the presentation. And also, a lot of people actually miss the consistency. So consistency is very important. Consistency in fonts, and consistency in like colors or consistency in the design. If you were to have I can't really tell it because I'm not very consistent either. But yeah, I like being creative. So I think, but if you were to do the presentation, I think consistency is really important. If you work in banks or especially if you work in like government institution, they really value consistency in formatting, right? So maybe if you work in the creative agency, then they might value your creativity in the design format. But so it's according to your audience, again, right? But do you know that you can actually create the PPT out of Canva? I mean, we have a lot of AI tools. So this is not very problematic for you guys, because you can actually ask Canva or like even with the PPT, they have an AI function. So you can just ask them to design the PPT for you, but still you have to know the principles, being consistent. If you're working for like really conservative environment, especially, it has to be very consistent in format, design, and also like darker sort of color, and even with the images. Oh, and if you were to put in the images or like any of the data or the statistics, always write down the source. I mean, even with the very little letters, it's very important that you actually cite the sources. It's important. It just makes you very objective. Okay. So if you want to like present the data on like the statistics on the UNICEF or something like that, just always write down the source of reference, even with like very small letters. All right, so write down what visuals or data will you use in your presentation. Find out those data from the internet. You can find them out from the internet. We're going to do this exercise in the second half of the class. You actually make the presentation today, so you use them anyway. Okay. If you were to use like an image or like any diagram or like yeah, you can find out the visuals or images or diagrams that you're going to use for your presentation from the internet. We'll actually make the PPT in the second half of the class. Yeah. But this is just an exercise to go through the steps together. So the presentation should be 5 to 10 minutes long. So think about the length, maybe it might be, I mean, it's according to the speed of your presentation. If you are, if you talk really fast, then the slides might be like 10 to 15 pages or something like that. So think about your own speed. Okay, we can spend more time on this later. Okay, use of that data and evidence. Who's next? Veronia?
Use of data and evidence. Include meaningful data to support claims. Explain what the data shows and keep visual, simple, and cite resource.
Yeah, so if you were to have some graphs or diagrams to support your argument, it's very, very effective. Especially like in company presentation, this is so useful. And we have a lot of tools to actually create graphs, you know? So you can use this. But to have like one graph is a lot more effective than have, I don't know, like 10 or like 11 sentences. Just having that visual is a lot more effective. But then if you were to actually draw the graph or the data from like statistics from some sources, then you really have to cite the sources. You know, this is very important. A lot of students, they actually omit this part. They just, you know, cite the sources. I mean, they just throw out the sources without citation. But it actually makes you look very unprofessional. So every time you actually borrow or like draw out some sources from the internet, like write down the source, like the address, the website address, you know, at least. Okay? Okay, we are doing the cross-cultural or intercultural communication. I mean, this is something that we went over this semester, so nothing very special, but just to recap, who's next?
Cross-cultural presentation tips.
Right.
How it's slang or idioms. Be aware of cultural references. Use clear visuals and natural design. Clearly
Acronyms?
and technical terms.
Yeah, because most of the case, if you were to work in the multinational like environment, you know, different languages, different cultures. So because of that, you really have to be careful to use simple and clear and concise language. This is so important. And if you were to have one graph, then it's a lot more powerful than, you know, having like many different, you know, like expressions. So, you know, having the visuals, having the image, and have the right graphs, this is so much like more effective. But in addition to that, you know, we've learned all these like different conventions and different norms and like customs. So it's very difficult to actually navigate through the different cues. So that's why business presentation is very effective, because it actually looks you, you know, it makes you look very like objective, you know, and presentable. So this is important. Okay, this is important. A lot of you guys, I think, don't have English problems. I think a lot of you guys, especially Korean students, have confidence problems. Okay, who's next?
Speaking with confidence, practice your delivery, use a steady pace and vary tone, make eye contact, use gestures, and breathe.
Breathe. Remember to breathe. A lot of students, when they start presentation, because they're just so nervous, so people actually like stop breathing, you know, and then just makes their face really red. So this happens, you know, like when you start your business presentation. So I mean, it's tough. You need to have a lot of practice before you actually get used to it. So practice makes perfect. But I really, really want to emphasize that you breathe. Yeah, that's the first step to confidence. And then also, yeah, have confidence. I mean, you're a novice. You're just a beginner. So and this is, you know, first time. You know, so and that's why we're doing this training. Yeah, we'll have the practice going on, and you know, I'm gonna let you know how to practice more like in a professional way. And this is just one step, you know, today. So I really want you guys to have the confidence in speaking. It's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes a mistake. I made tons of mistakes. You know, you wouldn't actually imagine how stupid I looked when I was a first year undergrad, you know. So everybody is sort of in this equal ground. So, you start out, so don't be afraid of making mistakes. It's okay to look foolish at the beginning. And after you practice and practice, you're gonna be improving. If you keep making mistakes and if you keep improving, that's the best way to learn, and that's the best way to improve. All right, so this is very important, Q&A session. Actually, this is more important than your presentation itself. Okay, who's next?
Handling question and answer sessions. Listen carefully, repeat the question if needed. Be honest. It's okay to not know everything.
Right. So for many of the business meetings, you have like presentation for like 10 to 20 minutes, and actually the real discussions occur during the Q&A sessions. So Q&A sessions actually last longer than the presentation itself. Most of the times, it's actually twice or like 3 times longer, because you actually get to ask the specific points that you're interested in, and you actually get to ask like questions and receive feedback on the specific points that you want to discuss. So Q&A session is a lot more important than presentation itself, right? So it'd be very nice if you could include some Q&A session in your video as well. But I'm not going to force you too much. I'm trying not to put pressure too much on you. But it'd be very nice if you could include a Q&A session, because this is very important. And a lot of times in business meeting, we have one person who's only listening. So if I'm presenting, then we actually in our team, we assign one person just to listen. Okay, listen to the questions that the other company or other people are asking. That listening is so important, because unless you listen and unless you get the feedback, you don't really know what your business partner really wants. So this person who listens actively, he or she gets to write down the details of the meeting. And that's really, really important to carry on the business dealings. So this Q&A session is important, active listening is important, and carrying out the conversation, carrying out the discussions as a result of the meetings actually occurs based on the Q&A session. All right, so you can actually use these questions in part 6, practice reflection, for your Q&A session. I'm not going to let you do it now because we haven't actually completed the PPT yet. But you can actually use these questions. How did your practice go, like business presentation practice go? What feedback did you receive? What will you improve for next time? You can use these questions to reflect on your presentation itself. Oh, okay. Practice and feedback. Who's next?
Practice and feedback. Rehearse aloud. Get peer or mentor feedback. Use video or audio to self-evaluate your delivery.
Right. This is why I actually record your role play. This morning, everybody participated in the role play, and I recorded it because it's so different. Actually, looking at you, making a presentation is so much different. It's a completely different feeling if you were to just watch it with your own eyes. So we have this advanced technology, so you can actually create your own YouTube channel and you can just put on your video and you can have a look at yourself. That's a very good way to train yourself in terms of presentation and public speech. And also, that's why I put this category, that criteria, that the more you put your feedback into the other person's presentation, I'm going to give you more credits. This is so important. And this is something I feel that a lot of my American friends and my British friends are very good at. They are not afraid of giving feedback. And they're just so happy to receiving feedback because they know that that's the best way to improve. Okay? So we'll actually make our presentations, and I'm going to give you some opportunities to ask questions. And if you have any questions to me, you can just come up to me and ask. But you get to practice before your peers, your friends, and get the feedback. And you can actually record your Q&A session as well if you want. Okay? Okay, common mistakes to avoid.
Common mistakes to avoid. Don't read directly from the slides. Avoid too much text. Watch your time. Stay engaged with the audience.
Oh, this is so important. What's your time? A lot of people exceed their presentation time. This is so important, okay? So, I mean, that's why we have to practice. I mean, so when I was working at KAIST, you know, we had like a lot of business meetings, like Zoom meetings. So if you were to have a Zoom meeting for 1 hour, say at 5 p.m. In the evening, then we meet around like 2 or 3, I mean, normally around like 1 or 2 p.m. and we spend like 2 or 3 hours just to practice. You know, like practice the presentation, practice what we're going to discuss, you know, go over the details, and just, you know, just we make a scenario about like what they will ask, you know, and how we'll actually like answer. Yeah, so like rehearsing is so much important and is so necessary. And that's why you need to like do a lot of practice before you do the actual presentation. And this is something that we're doing. And I really want to encourage you to make a presentation early in advance so you actually get to practice it yourself, and then you actually get to talk about it with your friends, okay? Okay, so I actually gave you the rubric. I think it says, okay, so presentation evaluation rubric. Okay, this is the criteria that you have to think about when you're making the presentation, and also when you're hearing the presentation. So I'm not gonna like ask you to point to score the other person's presentation, but this is a evaluation rubric that you can look into when you're creating your own. Who's next? Who's next? Okay. Can you actually read the points, the 10 points here?
The first point, clarity of purpose. Clear objective stated and followed throughout.
Right.
Second, structured organization. A logical flow. Intro, body, conclusion. Third, visual design. Slides are clear, readable, not too text heavy. Fourth, content and support. Strong evidence or examples. Story or data used effectively. Fifth, verbal delivery. Clear, audible voice. Confident tone, good pace. Sixth, non-verbal delivery. Good posture, eye contact and gestures. 7. Engagement. Audience interaction, energy or enthusiasm. 8. Cultural awareness. Presentation is accessible to global audience. 9. Time management. Stay within time limit. Clear start and finish. 10th. Question and answer handling. Answer questions thoughtfully and respectfully.
Right. So in terms of delivery, we have both verbal and non-verbal side. So unless you actually get to practice before the others, you don't really know whether you're effectively delivering your message. And that's why it's so important that you actually get to practice before the others, okay? So I'm gonna let you create the PPT, and you actually get to practice it before others, and you get the feedback. And if you can actually include a Q&A session within your video. And I'm going to evaluate the performance based on the video and the PPT. Okay, does that all make sense? And you can use it for making the video yourself. Okay, this is going to be the evaluation criteria. Okay. All right, final thoughts. So presentations are about connection, not perfection. No perfectionism here. You know, we're human beings, so as long as we can make a connection about the message that, you know, I want to deliver, that's what matters. Be clear, be human, and keep practicing. So this is important. Okay, so let's have a break for 5 minutes, and then we'll actually make a presentation today. Okay, let's start. So if you can finish the PPT, you can come to me, and then I can give you feedback. Okay, so let's do that.